Johnson just passing it out to his right, tries to find Lewis Grabban. Lewis Grabban has the shot, he scores! What a fantastic goal! Lewis Grabban.
Chris Wood. A name that I don't think many would have expected to have been on the score sheet this weekend. And by this weekend, I'm talking about the 18th of February 2023. Sound like I'm doing a diary. But Chris Wood got himself on the score sheet against probably the best British footballing team in decades, Manchester City. They're looking at winning their 5th Premier League under Pep Guardiola. Their 3rd in a row. Manchester City are on the up, just when Arsenal were looking frail. But today could not have gone probably any worse for them than possible. But let's not talk about Man City. We're not here to talk about Man City. We're not here to talk about Arsenal, Mikel Arteta, Martinez's own goal. We're not here to talk about absolutely anything in football other than Chris Wood and Nottingham Forest. Now, Chris Wood, when he joined on loan in January, I think most people were shocked. People didn't believe how quickly the transfer had happened. The loan had happened so quickly. It was within moments of being reported by John Percy he was having a medical at Nottingham Forest, and before you knew it, he was there. A loan deal with obligation to buy. Most assumed that the obligation to buy would be based on maybe playing 15 games, 20 games, 10 goals, however many games. Never did they anticipate that being 3 games before you activated a permanent transfer clause worth not 5 million, not 10 million, but 15 million. An incredibly different loan clause that I don't know if I've ever seen before. It's perhaps one of the strangest loan clauses I've ever seen in football. And that being said, it was something that caused a bit of controversy for me personally, and I know with a lot of people. I've had my doubts about Chris Wood, and I just want to say I've had those doubts, I've shared them, but I've not said that he's not going to do well. I've said that I want him to go and do well and prove people wrong, because there's no doubt in my mind that he can get goals for Nottingham Forest and he can be important. But of course, you're at a pivotal point in the season and first impressions are everything, and those first 3 games weren't impressive, and people of course are wanting results. They're wanting them now. There's that kind of feeling of anxiety amongst people about staying in the Premier League, because although people do say, and a lot of people that will say to you we're staying up, deep down, there's always that thought, and there should be in every Forest fan's mind, the thought about, is it possible we go down? It's a natural thing. It's natural. If you didn't think that way, I think you'd be naive to the idea of what the Premier League really is, the greatest footballing platform in the world. Bear in mind Europe, in the world. And no matter what, this is the biggest footballing institution in the world, as I say, the Premier League. And Nottingham Forest are here and they want to stay here. So of course every transfer we make, every player we sign, and every player that gets an opportunity and the privilege to start in that lineup, that starting 11, you want to make sure, you want to be able to say that player is strong, that player is going to get goals. And I know that the reservation was held about Chris Wood when he signed. He played a huge part in Newcastle staying up. Just last season at Christmas, Newcastle were bottom of the league. Newcastle now, despite losing against Liverpool, are in that top 4. And Chris Wood was a huge part of them even staying in this league. Now, I'm not suggesting that Chris Wood is a short-term option by any means. He's with Forest for another 1.5 years. And the reason for that being is that, as we mentioned earlier, that 3-game transfer clause. After 3 games in the loan deal, it essentially stated that Chris Wood would himself be able to personally activate the clause that says he can join Nottingham Forest on a permanent basis in the summer. This would cost Nottingham Forest £15 million, and there's an approximate £4 million loan fee, a number that's being thrown around quite a lot. So roughly £19 million for around 1.5 years of football, because in the summer he'll sign a 1-year contract. That's what he'll sign. Well, that's what the Times report he'll sign. Now, Steve Cooper's obviously a fan. Something that I saw today against Man City was when he scored that goal and the game was over, Chris Wood almost seems a little bit shy. And Steve Cooper's like that kind of dad telling him, go out there, talk to people. You know, go and enjoy it, go and celebrate it, because you've scored against, you know, one of the best defences in English football at the moment, and against one of the best teams in English football at the moment. And of course Arsenal are top. But Man City are an incredibly strong unit, and to get past them and to actually get into a position to score against them, as we found out today, is incredibly difficult. And Chris Wood found himself in the perfect spot. Perfect. VAR tried to rule him out, but it wasn't happening today. And because of that, the £15 million that everybody was talking about yesterday as if it was a burden suddenly became a little bit kind of forgotten. It's a lot of money. So I give my point on this. I think Chris Wood will do things for Forest. I think he will do what Steve Cooper wants him to do, and it will come in time. Another thing you've got to remember is that although people can moan on social media and say, why Chris Wood, why 15 million, why this isn't his fault. If you were offered the chance to go and get more game time, if you were offered the chance to probably go and get a bit more money, if you were offered the chance to go and play in a side that's doing okay and is on the up and has got a good manager like Steve Cooper, are you going to turn all of those things down, or are you going to go and sit on the bench in a team where you're very unlikely to play? Again, there's other options coming in for Newcastle. You're 31 years of age. This could arguably be one of the last big moves of his career. And he's still got something to offer, quite evidently, as we've seen today. And it wasn't just the goal that he offered today against Manchester City. And by today, it'll be yesterday if you're listening on Sunday. It was everything else that he did. The jumping for the headers, the passes outright, the building up of play, going forward, the counter-attack that he was working with. He did well. He provided a physical presence, and he made himself known to Man City's midfield and defence that he was there and that he was raring to go and get a goal. But as I mentioned again, it's not his fault that £15 million was the fee that was floating around. All you can do now is get behind Chris Wood and give him the support that you'd give any other Forest player. There's going to be tough times, and there's no guarantee he's going to score week in, week out. Perhaps this might come back to bite me in saying, let's support him. But as someone said earlier, and it was Dave Asprey, so I'll give you a big shout out, Dave. I'd just give him the benefit of the doubt. Give him a chance. You'd want a chance if you were in that position. Chris Wood didn't specifically tell Nottingham Forest, I want you to pay 15 million for me and pay my £80,000 a week wages, because why not? He comes in with a passion, and he comes in with a desire to win games. He wants to get goals. And he wants to do that soon. And arguably it was a tough start for him. It wasn't a brilliant first few games. Admittedly. Fulham, Bournemouth, Leeds. He didn't really make an impact. But he did today. And he's found his confidence. People have sung his name. 29,365 people have sung his name. Or 27,000 even. 26. He's got that confidence and he's found his home, he's found his feet. And whether that form continues next week or the week after, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. As I say, maybe you'll look at this video next week and go, it wasn't a great performance again. But you've got to get behind him. £15 million is the fee agreed between Newcastle and Nottingham Forest as part of that loan with obligation to buy deal. Of course, as I mentioned, the 3-game transfer clause wasn't expected by many fans, but that is the case, and that's how it is. But that being said, if Chris Wood scores crucial goals like he did today that keep us up, will that £15 million end up being the best £15 million we've spent all season? And that's the question I have to ask. And of course, football isn't about one person. Football isn't about one player that's been brought in. Football isn't about 4, 5, 6, 7 goals that a player might score to the end of the season. But you just never know. If he scores those crucial goals like he did today and hopefully win us in other games, could that be £15 million well spent? It's a question to ask. And it's of course important at the moment that we don't overhype, if you like. It's a good goal. It's an important goal. It's an important point that has put us in a better position in regard to being away from that dreaded area known as relegation, the relegation zone. Southampton got an important 3 points against Chelsea. Bournemouth beat Wolves. important points were won by teams, by teams that arguably most fans from Forest wouldn't have wanted to win points today. They wouldn't have wanted Southampton to get those points or other sides to get those points. But we focus on our game. And at the moment, our game is to make sure that we get the most out of games, score more goals, and we keep on good performances. Of course, home form has been great. Away form, we're improving, but it will take time. But what we can say is that Chris Wood did get a goal today. And at the time of me announcing I was going to make this video, Chris Wood had no goals. He had 3 games with no goal involvements, but a hell of a lot of doubters and haters in the Forest fan base. So not only do I hope that Chris Wood proves people wrong for his professional reasons for himself, I hope he proves it wrong so it sets a precedent in future. Because no matter what happens with football players, you will always have people hating you, you always have people doubting you, you'll always have people that are on your back 24/7. No matter how much you care for a team, no matter how much you care, every player has a tough game. Every player will have tough games forever, throughout their career. You will have tough days throughout your professional career in whatever job that you do. But you're in that job, and the people around you've got to support you to get the best out of you. And that's the same with Chris Wood. So regardless of what you think of this £15 million transfer deal, a huge, huge sum of money, got to get behind him. And in my opinion, I'm going to give you my opinion now, the 15 million was a lot. I wasn't on board with it. I thought after 3 games it was too soon to judge that. But if Cooper trusts him and Cooper has a plan and a vision with him, I'm sure he can get the most out of him. And that is good enough for me. Of course, do I think it could have been, from an outside looking in perspective, by the way, because I have no idea how the negotiations went, so it would be unfair to me for me to comment on somebody's negotiating skills. It would be completely unprofessional. But do I think that maybe the clause should have been different? Perhaps so. Is it that way? No. Will we get behind Chris Wood? Will I get behind Chris Wood? Absolutely. And so to see him score today was fantastic. And perhaps satirically, I'd mentioned to a few people, 1-1, Chris Wood to get the goal. And he went and did it. So he's proved me wrong today already. So all I'm going to say is this. £15 million, £80,000 a week. Chris Wood, he costs a lot. But that's not his fault. He's been offered a good opportunity for him. Perhaps, as I say, his last big footballing opportunity in the Premier League with Forest under a good manager and a good staff and with some brilliant players around him. And in the attack, Ayew, Brennan Johnson, Morgan Gibbs-White, pardon me, to name a couple, you wouldn't say no to that. So all I'm going to say is Chris Wood will bring us goals and it will take time and there is a big cost. But you have to get behind him. So all I'm going to say is that. But I'd really appreciate you liking, commenting. Let me know your thoughts on Chris Wood actually, and let me know your thoughts on these videos as well, because I do want to do kind of more videos that are maybe looking at player stats, looking at transfers, just talking a little bit about things, because it's wrong to completely berate players. You have to get behind them, and I know that some channels do. Some channels won't care for a player's mental health. But it's not, and I'm not just saying that, because at the end of the day, when you do say things, players might be watching this. And that's not a reason to say don't have your opinion. That's a reason to say don't insult someone and don't completely dig someone out for them having a bad day or a bad couple of games in this instance. So, as Dave said, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's get behind him. And it's going to be tough. There's a tough rest of the season incoming. This is by no means done yet. But it's good to see him scoring against Manchester City. And I personally am so happy for him to have gotten a goal today. And I'm sure it will do wonders for his confidence. So let's get behind Chris Wood. Let's get behind Forest. And more importantly, let's get behind Steve Cooper. So thank you for listening. Like, comment and subscribe. And let me know what you think about Chris Wood and what he'll offer at Nottingham Forest.